Hi, everyone. I'm John Gallant, Enterprise Consulting Director with IDG, and I'm glad you're joining us for my one-on-one conversation with Zaheera Valani, Vice President of Engineering at Tableau Software. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to talk with Zaheera about how good governance can actually be an accelerant to scaling your data and analytics strategy, and that can help you achieve business-changing results more rapidly. So welcome, Zaheera. Please tell us a little bit about your work with Tableau.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here. I lead engineering for data management at Tableau, and I've been at Tableau for 6 years now.
That's great. Zaheera, I've got an awful lot of ground I want to cover with you on this topic because I think it's a really important one for our audiences. So let's get started. Since the focus of this conversation is around governance, start by covering Tableau's definition of governance here. What are the key elements that you see as part of governance?
So governance is the combination of controls, roles, and repeatable processes that create organizational trust and confidence in data and analytics. The key here is trust and confidence in data and analytics. With Tableau, customers can create a deeply data-driven organization using the platform's highly configurable, manageable, and customizable platform.
Zaheera, when most people think of governance, they tend to think of it as something that's onerous and a lot of work, and I think even a hindrance to what they're actually trying to achieve. But you believe that good governance can actually spur innovation and transformation. Will you talk about how that's possible?
Yes. First, let me talk a little bit about that tension and why people think of governance as onerous, right? So traditional BI models can be quite linear. There's a flow of content, starts with someone in IT. They're tasked with creating content for people on the other end of the spectrum who will consume it. Now, this is not scalable when you have all the responsibility in the hands of a few individuals. Enterprises want everyone in the organization to make data-driven decisions, right, to drive business outcomes. And they want to do this in an environment where they have confidence in their data platforms. But in today's data environments, given the amount and the types of data, it can cause tension between IT and business. IT needs to govern the data, and people need to use data to make decisions. So many people see this as an or, right? It's governance or self-service. Have tight control over the data so that it's not abused, or let it be the wild, wild west. We believe in an and solution. You need to empower both IT and analysts to get their jobs done. And establishing this governance does not have to be onerous. You can get it in a way that is scalable. And so it starts with vision and strategy. And IT needs to take the role of building cross-functional bridges. So you asked, how does good governance spur innovation, right? Yeah. And so I have a couple of examples from two very different industries. I'll start with JP Morgan Chase. They're a leading global financial services firm and one of the largest US banks. And they were able to enable self-service analytics in this highly regulated space with data governance. They scaled Tableau from 400 users to nearly 30,000 users. And as a result, they've saved thousands of hours of work by reducing manual reporting time. Another example is a humanitarian organization. So this summer, I had the pleasure of speaking with Pierre-Guillaume Wolozinski from the World Food Program about their work. And he shared a really inspiring example of transformation. Helped with the Tableau Foundation grant, the World Food Program was able to quickly redirect much needed flour to Beirut after the blast in 2020. The team's first reaction was to review the data, and in seconds, rather than days, they were able to identify what neighboring countries had flour so they could get that to the affected 150,000 people. These are really powerful examples of how good governance, by enabling self-service, can actually spur innovation and transformation.
Yeah, those are great examples, particularly that humanitarian example. You know, you used a phrase about creating culture that's data driven and data literacy. And I know that's very high on the mind of the CIOs that I work with. How can governance actually help create and shape a culture that's data driven?
Yeah, I'll start with a definition, right? So data culture is the behaviors and beliefs that shape how people in an organization use data to make decisions and ultimately create business value. So IDC identified 5 key trends that set data leading organizations apart from their peers. The first is commitment, like realizing the value from data. The second is mindset, so encouraging data exploration and curiosity for everyone. And then there's talent, trust, and sharing, so breaking down the silos by emphasizing collaboration. Now, as organizations, transform to democratize data and become data leading organizations, it has to start with the strong governance structure, right? And that is what will fuel the thriving data culture. Self-service is designed to enable everyone to ask and answer questions, right, in this thriving data culture. But to successfully transform into this data-driven organization, you need to scale the use of data. And so governance is central to making self at scale possible. I have another example here of a customer, JLL. They're a global commercial real estate services company. And so they cultivated this new business culture by turning analysis into relevant insights. So everyone in the organization is a data champion, and they look at data to ask questions. There's a mindset shift, right? Because it also enables new ways of working. And so their facility managers, they can see the data for themselves, right? Everything from how old is the air conditioning units, when should they be replaced, to how much each facility is costing per square foot. It's more than just creating a pretty table. It's using data in new ways to solve problems.
So here, that's great. Let's dig into the mechanics of this now.
Mm-hmm.
So how does Tableau approach governance? What's your framework for enabling that?
Yeah. So Tableau's approach is the Tableau Blueprint. This is our proven methodology. It's a flexible, step-by-step governance framework that customers can adopt and then adapt to their requirements. We launched the methodology and these best practices in 2019, and it's based on years of working with our customers to help them become data-driven leaders. And so what the blueprint does is it formalizes the questions to ask and then outlines the steps that an organization can take to improve governance and agility. And now governance is central to the blueprint, right? One example here is of Red Hat. They're a leading provider of open source solutions, and they used the Tableau Blueprint and Tableau Online to deepen the data culture with their 4,500 person organization in less than 1 year. In less than 1 year, moving the entire organization to be more data driven. And so in the blueprint, we've aggregated best practices from thousands of Tableau customers, and it's really easy to navigate so that you can get started very quickly and make progress.
Yeah, that sounds really powerful. I know from my conversations with IT leaders that many of them see governance as an all or nothing thing. I mean, you either have full governance or you're really not approaching it in a systematic way. Does your approach enable a customer to start small and build out the governance strategy more easily so that it isn't such a daunting task?
Yes, our approach is all about starting small. So the blueprint assessment I was talking about earlier, it should take no more than 10 or 15 minutes to complete. And then it will generate a list of actionable recommendations, right? Including guidance and services so that it is easy to achieve success. Our customers have told us that the documentation that we make available, the blueprint assessment, is very, very easy to use. IT and their line of business partners can quickly work together and get started. So the key really is start small, get some quick wins, and then iterate and improve. And as a result of this, there's a lot of repeat customers of the blueprint, right? You get value from data practice and a governance strategy, and then go back, refine, and expand. Another thing I wanted to mention is an example of one of our customers, Illumina. They're a health and life sciences company. They're the world's leading DNA sequencing company. They dove into Tableau Blueprint resources. They took the assessment and saw that there was work to do for community governance and proficiency. They adopted data best practices, and after working through the initial blueprint recommendations, they achieved substantial improvements, particularly with governance. Their data culture has now shifted beyond maturity, almost fully to leading. And this really helped enable the broader analytics community within the organization. So again, the Tableau Blueprint approach helps organizations understand their data maturity and determine the first step that they can take to start the journey of data maturity.
That's a great approach. I like that a lot. So how does Tableau's approach make a company's governance strategy more dynamic? Meaning by that as the company changes and grows, that governance strategy changes and grows along with its needs.
This is actually critical, right? Organizations are not static. They're constantly evolving. And so considering every organization is different and every use case is different, there's varying degrees of governance that are required. So we established 3 primary governance models: centralized, delegated, and self-governing. And so this is to provide flexibility to satisfy, the different governance needs. Now, in a centralized model, IT or a central team will own data access and they'll produce the data sources for the business to consume. And so this is, in a one-to-many manner, right? And centralized governance is required for maintaining control of highly sensitive data. Now, in a delegated governance model, right, there's roles that are introduced outside of IT or outside of the central team. There's data stewards that are identified, and they may have direct access to sources of data. And then they're able to, work with, content authors and who can then ask and answer their own business questions. So there's increasing collaboration between IT and the business users as IT is shifting from a provider of reports to an enabler of analytics. And then there is a self-governing model, right, where there is very strong collaboration between IT and the business users. Ad hoc content is being created, and there's increasing analytical skills in the organization. And so the boundaries are fluid as users switch from consuming to creating to promoting content. So this, centralized, delegated, self-governing models, can apply to different organizations, but this also applies to transitional environments, right? Where an organization is transitioning from IT, maybe moving from this traditional centralized delivery model to one of more self-service. And so on the Tableau platform, we also have ongoing R&D investments, to promote our customers' abilities to achieve constantly changing environment.
That's great. In conversations that I've had on many occasions about analytics, I know that one of the challenges is, IT working with other departments effectively to really move forward. And I think that one of the most powerful aspects of your approach is how you empower IT and business leaders to work together on governance. Can you talk about that aspect of the framework and how it encourages those conversations and that interaction?
Yeah. So first, governance, as we said earlier, governance makes self-service analytics possible, and we have a unique perspective. So the Tableau Blueprint has a curated collection of governance best practices to to help organizations find the right balance of flexibility and control, no matter where they are in their data journey. So we're bringing the expertise and guidance to bring together IT and business leaders so that you can build that data culture together. All parties have a stake, right? It has to be a partnership in order for it to be effective. And so in the Tableau platform, we've taken very deliberate steps to add capabilities to govern at scale. Data management and governance are fully integrated into the platform. So our unique approach is we're bringing self-service to data management. And we do this by surfacing valuable metadata, right? Like lineage information, data quality alerts, right in the flow of analysis. And at the same time, providing that visibility and security and governance that organizations require.
It's interesting when you talk about self-service, and that's such an important part of what you're talking about. I think historically, people have viewed self-service and governance as opposing forces. What's that relationship like within the Tableau framework? How does it enable that kind of freedom?
Yeah. So our foundation, right, is built on this governance model that will deliver trusted data. We have strong data management capabilities, right, within the platform, so that enterprise teams can make business decisions with self-service analytics. We believe that technology should accelerate the data culture, right? And so by that I mean, scale your technology stack and your data culture. And so we have a very people-first self-service approach for empowerment and action. And some of the things that I talked about earlier, right? Like it's across the spectrum, depending on whether you have, whether you're targeting a centralized or delegated or self-service governance model. There's functionality in the platform to be able to enable, organizations throughout that journey.
So do you think that governance, if it's done right, can create a competitive edge for a company? And if so, how would that be?
Yes. Organizations can design their own governance models, right? And so the idea is it's an agile, iterative approach, giving the organization the power to adapt to adapt to new business requirements as adoption increases in the organization. So we've been doing this, the blueprint methodology for the past couple of years, right? And the key here is like the ongoing continuous improvement. And it's a journey, it's not a destination. And we've seen that data-driven companies have an edge, and especially right this past year and a half, where the pandemic has really accelerated the digital business. And so we've seen that good governance enables trusted data so that you can have self-service analytics at scale within an organization. We have a customer, Signet Jewelers. They're an international jewelry retailer. And so what their IT team did is they consolidated data into this new enterprise data warehouse, right, with a series of starter dashboards to create this comprehensive view of the business. And they're in the past 12 months, right, their per user views increased by over 300% compared to the prior 12 months. And the results have been incredible. They've reduced their time to market. They saved $250,000 by transforming the team's ability to find data patterns. And they also identified new opportunities. They had identified a new $10 million opportunity in purchase behavior patterns. All of this with, governance kind of being the backbone of the self-service and creating this competitive edge for the organization.
Now, Zaheera, we have covered an awful lot of ground in this discussion. It's been really powerful, particularly the case studies. I'd love to get 2 or 3 critical takeaways from you, advice really focused on how a company gets started here with governance to advance their analytics goals and to make better use of their data.
The first thing I will say is self-service and governance work together. Data governance is good and it's critical to take the organization to the next level. You gain a competitive edge with iteration. The second thing is commitment and trust. These are two trends that IDC identified to being a data-driven organization. Governance is truly foundational and a critical baseline for commitment and trust. And then finally, Tableau Blueprint is your guide, right? Review the governance section in the blueprint assessment, complete the blueprint assessment. It only takes 10 minutes. Start small, iterate, just get started today. A key element as well is training. Start with a survey of how your employees are doing, what the data proficiency looks like in the organization, right? And training is not just about technical skills, it's also about how you think about the data and develop a narrative around it. And the training can take many forms. Again, start small, quick wins, and iterate.
That's great. Well, we have covered an awful lot of ground today, but unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I want to thank my guest, Zaheera Valani, Vice President of Engineering with Tableau Software. Zaheera, what a pleasure. I learned a great deal.
Thank you, John. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here today.
And I want to thank you, our audience, for joining us. And I hope you'll learn more about the Tableau Blueprint, which includes the governance framework that Zaheera spoke about. For IDG and Tableau, I'm John Gallant.